Good morning. I'm inside Atrium here because, as I showed you, it's raining, and we had some nice light forms there over the Golden Heights, but those clouds are going to eat up all that light very soon. And you can see that our windows need washing here, but it's very hard with the birds. Very hard, because these are huge windows, and they fly and perch just above this here because they like the spot. And then they leave their evidence that they were here visiting. And then we're low on staff. Little by little we're rebuilding. We just opened, we had our first guests arrive yesterday evening, just a couple of guests. And then today, God willing, we'll have a lot more. There are even some who will celebrate their Seder here tomorrow evening. So there was a lot of rain last night, and there's a lot more promise for later today, but it's already happening right now. It was supposed to be dry. You can see here it's dribbling intensely. And I don't want the camera to get wet, or me either. We get spoiled by the dry, warm weather here for so many years. But this will be towards the end of our rain now for the winter. We'll get some more, I think, during the holy days. Holy Thursday, Good Friday. At least that's what's predicted. And Holy Saturday. But usually April sees very little rain. And we're just before Holy Week. On Sunday, we have Palm Sunday. So our pilgrimage is actually the creed part, commenting the creed, which Kathleen has been doing, and I'll be doing a little bit from the connecting with the readings of the day. We'll finish tomorrow, but it goes on through Holy Week. And some people were asking if I could continue the sunrise stroll and chat and not finish it with the retreat. And that means those are new people. So we welcome you new people to our Magdalene family, because we've actually been doing sunrise stroll and chat every day for a year, more than a year. I'm not sure the exact date we started. Somebody could go back and dig it up on Facebook if you have the patience to go back that far and scroll back a whole year. And you could let us all know what date we started. But that's not going to be an assignment for anybody, because you would need the patience of Job to plow back through Facebook, unless there's a special trick to do it, and to go back into, let's say, end of February last year, beginning of March. So we don't plan to interrupt that, God willing. At least that's our human plan. We will continue doing sunrise stroll and chat as long as the possibilities are there. So I think that it's doubtful we will see a sunrise there now, because the sun should be straight in front of us there, more or less behind the tree, behind that solitary tree that's there in the center. So let's go back into Atrium here, or just turn around because we're inside already. And today we could go to the women's atrium maybe. Or maybe we can go downstairs if I can arrange the Wi-Fi. This is such a beautiful space. It's the most beautiful part of the building in my estimate, at least all of the effort that was made to conceive of it, to decorate it, the inspirations that were here. And it's dedicated to honor women. And for those of you who don't know Magdalene, this mosaic is a copy of the mosaic we discovered in our synagogue, which we excavated in 2009, about 100 yards, 120, 30 yards here, just due west of here. And we have these columns here honoring the women of the New Testament, of the gospel story. And they bear the names of the women. Here in this one on my right here we have Salome, who is the mother of the sons of Zebedee. And they're right in there in the call of the Fisherman Chapel. And here we have Martha and Mary. From Lazarus, the sisters of Lazarus. And then over here we have the mother-in-law of Simon Peter. And in this chapel we have Peter sinking in the water. There's the mother-in-law of Simon Peter. Some people say it's the first time they've ever seen a monument for a mother-in-law. So if you are a mother-in-law or you have a mother-in-law, take a screenshot and send it to your son-in-law or your daughter-in-law or your mother-in-law and say, we have a column here to honor you. These women were strong pillars in Jesus' community, supporting his mission. And here we have Peter, and Jesus is pulling him out of the water as he sinks after walking in the water at the storm on the sea. This is the Singapore Chapel, donated by wonderful people from Singapore. And then we have Mary of Cleophas, or Cleopas. And then we have many others here. And that's the third element in a line from Luke chapter 8, which starts off saying that Jesus was traveling with the 12 and the women whom he had delivered and healed. And among them were, first of all, Mary Magdalene. And this is the chapel dedicated to her memory and what Jesus did for her, the great works Jesus did in her life. And Susanna and Johanna. The wife of Chusa, and he was the head administrator for Herod Antipas, So they were friends, and she was the wife of the head administrator, so they were people of the court of Herod Antipas. Very interesting, that all these people were Jesus. And so these women of the Gospels are intimately connected with the women of the Bible, of the Hebrew Scriptures. And this mosaic copied from our synagogue illustrates that background. That they are the women from the community of the synagogue, of the Jewish people. And then we have one column that we missed. So I'm not sure whose name is here. Let's look. And there's no name. So this column is for every woman, for you. If you are a woman who is following us right now, or you can tell your wife, or your daughter, or your mother, or your sister, or your assistant at the office, your neighbor, women in your faith community. Tell them to have this column here. Recognizing their role, which is expressed up here in these words, written in mosaic with the golden background. And it starts off saying here, in this holy place, the church, ecclesia, gives thanks to the most holy Trinity for the feminine genius. Literally it says for the mystery of woman, but it's a theological understanding of the word mystery. So it's for the feminine genius is a very valid translation. There's more background to that we can go into. For each woman, for their eternal dignity, and for the marvels, the wonders that God has accomplished throughout history, through them, or in them. So this phrase is honoring all women. And the women, the columns, the women of Jesus' community, were great supporters, great pillars of support in his community. And the mosaic, the women of the scripture, starting with Sarah and Rebecca and Rachel and Leah and all the other women of the scriptures, Deborah, Judith, Ruth, Naomi, so here we honor the women. There's also a very interesting acoustic effect. Maybe you can pick it up here as I talk. Can you hear that there's a resonance? And then the ceiling is decorated with an imaging which inspired the artist and Father Juan also. And here we have the hands of Our Lady of Guadalupe, the mother of Jesus. And yesterday we remembered how God asked her. Imagine that God respects the freedom so profoundly, and he asked her if she would accept his plan to become incarnate, be made flesh, and he was in her womb for 9 months, and surely in her embrace for a number of years as he was nursed and trained in so many ways humanly, and received that affection, that love, that total acceptance. It's an amazing image that's in Mexico. It's almost 500 years old, in another 10 years, 490 years old. And it's on an untreated cloth, which is not really cloth, it's just a fabric made of raw plants. And it was used as a type of a mantle, a cover, a type of a coat, or if you will, by the Indians in Mexico, the native peoples of Mexico. And Juan Diego was wearing this when this image happened, and it's scientifically inexplicable. There are so many mysteries to this image. It's not our subject right now, but you can Google Guadalupe, Guadalupe, and you can find out more about it. It's an incredible story. It's, I think, one of the most visited places in the world. The amount of people that go there, millions of people every year. There are lots of fascinating stories about it. So this is the most complex part of the building. It's an octagonal space. It is the most ornate part of the building. And it's the central part of the building. And here we are honoring women through the expression of this space. So that acceptance by that teenage girl that Jesus could come into the world is a little bit also of a backdrop for today's readings, because today's readings are very rough, starting with Jeremiah, where he is sent by God, and he himself had a big battle with God to accept God's plan in his life. He didn't want to be a prophet. And he fought off that vocation for quite some time. And eventually he gave in. He uses a very powerful graphic language. He says that God seduced him. Obviously, a spiritual meaning, that God wooed him, that God begged him, that God attracted him. He couldn't resist God's magnetic force, and so he was brought into God's plan, a little bit or a lot against his own will, but he accepted. And then little by little he was speaking God's words, which were very difficult to speak because there were words of criticism, words of calling a people to repentance. And today, in I think it's chapter 20 there we have, he is really, really crying out to God because the people want to kill him. And they are rising up against him. And this is also a context to understand Holy Week, because that's what happens to Jesus. The people and their leaders rise up against him. For what good work do you want to stone me? At this scene of the gospel today, there's a threat of stoning Jesus. They're picking up rocks to stone, to throw at him. And they say it's for blasphemy. You're making yourself equal to God. That's really the bottom line for the leaders upset with Jesus. And one of the most serious things was not so much throwing out the devil, but raising Lazarus, and not that either. But that was a tipping point before his passion, because it brought so many people to faith in him. But the big issue was that he was forgiving sin, something that only God could do. And you make yourself God. And in today's gospel, Jesus prods their minds because of an exegetical argument. You have the link there, typical of the times, and trying to open their minds to the miracles that the Father has allowed him to do. They're called the works. It's interesting, John is a Jew from Bethsaida, and all the disciples, most of them are Jewish, and the big crowd of followers are Jewish who are supporting Jesus. But then this people against him are also Jewish, and John uses a term that we could misunderstand, and he says, and the Jews were wanting to stone him. And there were so many faithful disciples, and the most faithful ones were the women. But this issue of the Jews wanted to stone him. So we talked about this a few times, and there's a very strong academic consensus that this is obviously a later moment. It's like 2 generations after the crucifixion when John's Gospel is written. That's the understanding. But it's a term that's used for those from Judea. So you have the Galileans and the Judeans. And our word in English, Jew, comes from Judea, from the people who lived in Judea, the Jews. And it's used indiscriminately for all of the Jews today. So when we hear the word Jew, we can include every single Jew. But in John's Gospel, it cannot mean every single Jew because he himself is a Jew. And all the disciples are Jews. And all the first Christians, the first disciples were Jewish, most of them. So then it's understood that it's in a certain context, and there was obviously a big tension between the Galileans and the Judeans. We see that also in the conversation with Nicodemus when he's defending Jesus, and he's one of the Sanhedrin, one of the top leaders of the Jewish people. And they say, well, did ever a prophet come from Galilee? He's a Galilean. So you can see this tension between the people in the countryside and the people at the capital. And that happens in many countries even today. I remember Ronald Reagan, when he was campaigning, he campaigned against Washington. And others have done that also. They campaign against that center of power where there may be corruption, or there may be the sense that they don't have the interests of the whole people at heart. So it's a complex theme, and it's important to take note of it and not to allow the words change over time. The meaning of words evolve over time. So I just took a moment to explain that, because sometimes people ask me. I haven't seen much of The Chosen, and I want to do this wonderful series on the life of Jesus in the New Testament. But I did see in a little thing yesterday a snippet of a conversation of Nicodemus meeting Mary Magdalene. It was very interesting. And remembering that conversation, that Nicodemus is such an incredible character. And he was hiding in the woodwork, so to say. He came out to meet Jesus at night time. He didn't expose himself, but little by little he is going to grow in his faith in Jesus. And by the time of the Passion and death, and even long before the resurrection, still on Good Friday, he's able to publicly commit to help to bury Jesus. And this is very, very interesting, how our path in the faith, we have a lot of resistance inside of us. There are a lot of blockages, and we're all growing in the faith. This is actually shown here in Mary's clothes. You can see after the exorcism, or the freedom of the 7 demons that Luke and also Mark speak about, that she's so beautiful because these demons are gone out. And so that radiant beauty is what's expressed, this new creation. You remember the Sistine Chapel image where the two hands are stretched out between God and Adam, the creation of Adam, and here it's like a new creation. She's the first witness of the risen Christ. And she's a new creature because Jesus has completely freed her from all that evil spirit influence that was inside of her. So she's completely liberated, completely freed, and that beauty is expressed. But Maria Jesus Fernandez, the artist, she presented her dress as still needing a lot of work. And one of the basic ways I talk about this with the visitors here is that when we say yes to Jesus, when we receive great grace, maybe in a moment of prayer, in a moment of deep conversion, turning to God, sometimes we might think now that we're almost in heaven, but actually we still have a long way to walk, and we still have a lot of improvement to go. It's like when you get married. What a beautiful day when you get married. Everybody's dressed up, everybody's happy, there's a celebration, there's a beautiful cake, beautiful meal, music, beautiful prayer service or liturgy, and there's that great celebration, and everybody is saying, oh, isn't she lovely, and wonderful couple, and all the rest, and they say to each other, I love you, and they really mean it, otherwise they wouldn't be getting married. And then that cannot be the only time they say, I love you. It's a work of a lifetime. Every day. And the love is not just in words, it's primarily in deeds. So it's a long walk. The maturing of love is a long walk, and that particularly is true also of our relationship with God. And it's a long walk that sometimes goes through Calvary and many struggles. Right now we got a prayer intention from a lady who, a couple of days ago, who her husband needs a chair to bring him up to the second floor, one of those motor chairs that go up the stairs attached to the banister, and something failed, so they no longer have the chair, so there was quite a bit of stress in the family, and they need special prayer, And though when they got married, a young couple full of energy, full of life, they weren't thinking about using a chair like that. But love goes through those phases. It goes through phases of great difficulty and great challenge. And that's what we're going to meditate, particularly in Holy Week. Now it's almost about to start. How Jesus is loving us through the entire passion, and how his disciples are called to live that kind of love. So people will say goodbye here, and I'm very happy that you joined this morning. May the Lord bless you, and see you tomorrow, God willing. Maybe we'll see some people here this evening on the German edition. And maybe we'll see some of you now in a couple of minutes on Instagram. God bless you.